what are the most significant challenges you face in transforming organizational culture and leadership?
I think the most significant changes is really the unpredictability of the humans that we're working with. So again, coming back to your first question around knowing and understanding. So my approach is very much rooted in the fact that leaders create culture. And just like we can map leaders' personalities, and we've got different tools that we can use. We've got Myers-Briggs, and we can use Insights Discovery. We can use DISC. I personally like using Insights Discovery and a tool called Lumina. Same thing where we're categorizing in 4 main categories, and we're using very non-threatening color speak to describe the typical behaviors that we would see associated with that archetype. The same way that we can do it for people, we can do it for organizations. And what I find is organizations that are very steeped in hierarchy, process, certainty, analysis. So if you think almost traditionally, your financial service providers, your banks, any kind of state entity, they tend to be like that. Organizations that are very stuck in that place, or very stuck in the old school capitalist idea of business, which is get the results, deliver the competitiveness. Those things come at a price, and the price that they come at is they cost us the human interaction and connection. They cost us the empathy and the people first, the inclusion, the belonging. They cost us agility and adaptability. They cost us innovation and learning. And the biggest challenge that I find is that when we have a culture that is sitting in that hierarchy space, that process-driven space, or that very competitive space, or a combination of those two, is actually moving those leaders to a different place, because how the culture landed up there in the first place is a reflection of who those leaders are and what they truly believe. So what we see on the surface of the culture is really just a manifestation of very deeply held beliefs and attitudes about people, about work, about progress and profits. And the work that we need to do is not, it's not the change plan and the comms plan and the surface level stuff of, designing values. The work that we need to do, the challenging part, is working with those individual leaders to help them identify the beliefs that they hold that they didn't even know that they have. And those beliefs are driving their behavior. So for us to change their behavior, we need to go and find what's sitting underneath it. And the biggest challenge is doing that work. Because of course, some people just don't really want to change, and then you need the backup behind that from a neuroscience perspective. To be able to change habits is you need certain structures in place within the organization, like performance management is one of the tools that we can use. Recognition and reward is one of the other tools that we can use. And again, if we have a senior leadership team that pays lip service to all of these things, when times get tough, they don't want to fire their highest performing sales exec, Tim, because he delivers great numbers, but he's a really awful person to work for. And it's getting people to understand that it's about the quantifiable measures, the business measures that we're used to, but it's also about the qualitative measures around employee experience and how people are treated. And that's the toughest thing to change.
Awesome. So while you were talking about that, I was thinking about perhaps an exception to the idea of that it's the leader's attitudes, because I totally agree with that. Also, if you have a new leader that is they will not only inherit, it could be a combination, and tell me if you disagree, but it could be a combination of the last leader's beliefs, and then as that leader leaves, say a CEO leaves and a new one comes in, that's the culture that he then inherits or she then inherits. So it'll be that plus the deeply held beliefs, the industrial revolution mentality, shut
Yes,
up, get in line and behave because there's somebody else who would take your job kind of mentality stacked on top of it. So it could be the previous leaders plus the existing leaders together,
yeah.
especially if they're
It's
similar.
it's 100%, and it's interesting that you say, especially if they're similar, because we find, and I'm sure you've seen this a million times as well, we find this all the time. This whole concept of hiring for culture fit, we hire people who are like us. So you're automatically going to hit it off if you are a very conservative leader. You like facts, you like data, you like process and hierarchy, and that's above your pay grade, and don't ask these questions. You're not going to gel with me automatically because of my approach around innovation and adaptability and agility, and just the energy just the way that I show up in the world is going to already grate you. So it's highly unlikely that you're going to hire me as your successor, even if I'm perhaps what your culture and your organization needs. So
Mm-hmm.
we tend to hire people who are like us. And yes, they might be a little different. They might be a younger generation. They might not have all of the toxic beliefs that we have, but they've got their own toxic beliefs. Again,
Mm-hmm.
anything when we take it too far can also become problematic. So, like you say, you're dealing with so many levels and just this really complex, nuanced um, organism. And it's this living, breathing organism that's constantly changing. And that is what is so challenging, but also what is so exciting and so rewarding when we actually get the foundational stuff right and we have all of those pillars and everything is working together beautifully and we're actually seeing progress. It's magic and it's alchemy and it's just amazing.
In fact, I was recently listening to a book. I can't remember the name of the book, but it was exactly what you said. It was like this guy says, well, the way I hire is I look for this, this, and this. And then he went, oh, I'm describing myself. That's not good, is it? That was the quote in the book about somebody who became aware once they articulated it, that in fact they look to hire people who are like them. But the fact that he became aware, it isn't enough to eliminate the bias, but it's certainly enough to then put, systems and processes in place to consider for that or neutralize the bias by involving other people or having sort of countermeasures to that bias. So love
Yeah.
that.
Awareness precedes change. That's, the awareness, and whether it is self-awareness that we help to create, or whether we're creating the awareness with data.
Mm-hmm.
So I do a lot of work with a company called Team Foria, which is an employee engagement and culture platform. And we've got a culture baseline survey that we've developed in conjunction with Gallup. And that's a great place for us to go and get a lot of this data to create the awareness to say, you might think your culture is X, but when we go and look at the data, this is what it's telling us, and you then need to decide are you happy with this or do you want to change it?
Mm-hmm.
And as you say, the challenge that we're dealing with here is we are constantly trying to shape the invisible, and it's invisible to us and it's invisible to the people that we're working with. And as you know, not everyone is always comfortable with that level of self-awareness that we're asking them to step into. And not everyone is comfortable with going that deep and realizing, what's the Taylor Swift song? It's me. Hi, I'm the problem. Not everyone is comfortable with realizing that.